Before we get into the show, I wanted to put out a hiring call. I'm looking for my next software engineering apprentice, a young .NET programmer to help me directly with my work, building architectural prototypes, figuring out new patterns, tons of coding. And I'm looking for a .NET programmer whose hobby is also programming. For the right person, programming isn't work, it's play. And besides a job, I can guarantee that you will learn faster than you ever have before. And I will invest in your professional education and we'll work together and you will grow. You'll report directly to me. So if any of this sounds interesting to you, just send me an email or give me a call. Now, let's get into our show. Azure OpenAI with Michael Washington.
The Azure DevOps Podcast is a show for developers and DevOps professionals shipping software using Microsoft technologies. Each show brings you hard-hitting interviews with industry experts, innovating better methods, and sharing success stories. Listen on to learn how to increase quality, ship quickly, and operate well. And now your host, Jeffrey Palermo.
Welcome to the show. I'm Jeffrey Palermo, your host for helping you and your teams move fast and deliver quality and to run your software with confidence in Azure, all while using everything that the .NET ecosystem has to offer. The podcast is sponsored by ClearMeasure, a software engineering firm serving companies with mission-critical software projects that need to be delivered. When failure is not an option, there's ClearMeasure. You can find them at clearmeasure.com. Quick announcement, we're in our second year of my architect forums. Signups for them for the next session are up on the website. And if you lead a software team and you're looking to collaborate with other peers, other architect leaders, people who are leading teams of developers, then you can just sign up at the link in the show notes. It's free. It's just a community activity where iron sharpens iron. And for those who are looking for my Programming Palermo video podcast, you can just search for it in any of the directories and you'll be able to find it. My returning guest today on the show is Michael Washington. Michael is an ASP.NET and C# programmer who has extensive knowledge in process improvement, AI, and large language models and student information systems. He's also the founder of two websites, AIStoryBuilders.com and BlazorHelpWebsite.com. Both are fantastic resources that help empower developers. Michael resides in Los Angeles, California, with his son Zachary and his wife Valerie. Michael, welcome back to the show. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. I think this is the third time you've been on the podcast, if I'm counting correctly. But welcome. I want to ask you all about your AI story builders and your new book around Azure OpenAI that we'll make sure to link. But before we get into that, AI and GPT and large language models is kind of the new hotness everybody's talking about, and there's lots of movement. But are there any maybe high points in your career that have kind of steered you into loving programming and then working on what you're working on today?
Well, I've been a Microsoft stack programmer because I think the first database ever created was Microsoft Access. So I was a teenager back then. So I've pretty much stayed with Microsoft technologies, and I, just like the community. I got involved in open source with .NET Nuke. So I found out about the whole community and people, teaching others and helping others out, just to help them out, that sort of thing. So, then I eventually became a Microsoft MVP through that process. And yeah, it's just the people, the community, and the software, obviously. And I've been through, all the various things, Silverlight, and which then led to Blazor. And then, of course, the AI came out. And of course, you see Microsoft's a leader in that. So yeah, this has just been where I've been. This is the community. These are the people.
Nice. And yeah, you went really deep into Blazor. Your a Blazor book, your help website, and I'm wondering, AIStoryBuilders.com. I know this is an aside. It's a website. What did you choose to build it in? Just curious, the tech stack.
Oh, the website, of course, is Blazor. However, the website is just a place for you to get information, documentation, and information on the actual application. And the actual application is the first Windows program I've ever, commercially written. And of course, it is a Blazor Maui program.
Nice.
So I had always avoided making Windows, an application that people install on their Windows desktop. I've always avoided that. I'm a total web programmer, but this particular project, it really needed to be something that runs on a person's computer for the stability and the speed and all that sort of thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give it a shot because I can write it using Blazor.
Right.
It was a wonderful experience. So I guess we can maybe talk about it a little bit later, but creating a Windows desktop application using Blazor is a very interesting experience for me. And AI Story Builders is that product. But then there's a website called AIStoryBuilders.com, which is a Blazor website. And that's just where I put the documentation and
Yeah.
you need a website, even if the ultimate thing is a desktop application.
Right. Well, your latest book is out on Amazon. It's called Azure OpenAI using C#. Now, you've written a number of books, and I think this one just got published, last September? Somewhere around there? Last fall?
Yes, it did. Yep. Yes,
so
it did.
Congratulations on that. We'll include a link to it.
Thank you.
In the show notes. What was the vision? You said, you know what? There needs to be a book on this topic.
Okay. Everything around AI programming, we're, not just a normal consumer, but we're trying to create an application around AI. Everything is using Python.
Yeah.
Trying to find a resource using C# is extremely hard. That's why the title of the book says, this is Azure OpenAI. There's a lot of other books on Azure OpenAI and a million articles, but this one covers using C#. So that's why someone needs to write this book. But the biggest thing was I wanted to learn. I was very excited. ChatGPT came out. Like everyone else, I was using it. And I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. But I really wanted to get down deep and learn it. And that's why I've written 15 books, because that's how I learn. I did also write a book on OpenAI. So this is Azure OpenAI. So this is consuming the OpenAI models through Azure. That's what my book is about. You can obviously consume OpenAI models directly from OpenAI.com. And I did write a book, which should be out in about 3 months, from SyncFusion. So that'll be a free book that you can download from SyncFusion. And so I actually wrote that book first. And then I, of course, wanted to do something with Azure OpenAI. And then I wanted to write a book for that. And that's the book that is out, that came out in September. And after writing that book, that's when I decided to create AI Story Builders.
Very cool. People should go and read the book, but even the table of contents is pretty intriguing. Like recursive OpenAI function calling, bringing your own data, which everybody is talking about, bringing your own data. What are some of the cliff notes, some of the things that you discovered that's like, okay, this blows it wide open?
Okay. So again, I, started writing the book because I wanted to learn. And so I have all this, it assumes you know nothing. It starts you off, here's how to, make a simple chatbot, that sort of thing. As I was writing the book and getting part of the whole community and seeing what people are doing, I realized that the holy grail of large language models, when you are approaching it from a developer standpoint, okay, you're an architect and your company wants to somehow incorporate large language models and this whole AI thing. The number one thing you hit is, my company has data that is not exposed on the web. Right. The model was not trained on this data, but we want the AI to know about this data. How do I handle that? The answer is what they call RAG, R-A-G, Retrieval Augmented Generation. Essentially what this means is you have to feed the AI in the prompting process. When you type something and you send it to the AI, that is called the prompt. So in the prompt, you must provide all the information that the AI needs, as well as your question, which is, how many people do we need to contact based upon all the activities that we have planned for the next week? You have to provide to the AI in the prompting process all the various activities. And then your question, which is, how many people do we need to contact? And it'll then come up with the answer. But notice, you have to give it all that information. Now, that may seem kind of counterintuitive. You may say, well, wait a minute, if it's supposed to be doing all the work for me, why do I have to do all the work up front? Well, you can just you could just do an information dump.
Mm-hmm.
Here's 10,000 things, and it will sort things through. So that's what it's good at. So the question is, how do I know what information to give it? And that is part of the retrieval augmented generation process. What you do is you use a thing called embeddings. And embeddings are basically turning information into basically numbers, but it turns it into a format that the computer can understand. And you're able to then search amongst all your information to only pull up information that is relevant to this particular prompt that you need to send. And that's kind of how you do it. So the first step is create embeddings of all your existing information. So all your existing database information, PDF files, whatever it is, you create embeddings. Now you decide what you're searching on or what your question is, whether it is, please find all my, create a schedule for me, or tell me what my schedule is next week. You basically then do a search that says, go into all my, appointments, searching on the embeddings to pull up all my relevant appointments, send that to the prompt, and then the AI will come back and say, okay, Monday you need to do this, Tuesday you need to do this, Wednesday you need to do that. So it's a process. And my book covers step by step by step through a number of examples on how you do the embeddings, how you create the search and all that sort of thing. All the code, of course, is on GitHub, so you can just download the samples. But I explain to you line by line exactly what's happening so that you have a full understanding, so that you can then incorporate that information. So it was after I wrote that book, and I go, okay, I've explained all the nitty gritty parts. I go, I want to create an application that uses what I've just talked about, so that people can see this is how it would work in a real world application. And that's why I came up with AI Story Builders.
Nice. Is there a story behind the name?
Oh, AI Story Builders. Okay. Well, like I said, I've written about 15 books. However, my major in college is actually radio, TV, film. I wanted to be a filmmaker.
So that's why you're good at this stuff, writing all these books. And
But, I like fiction writing. And I haven't done much fiction writing in the last, 10 years because it takes so much time to concentrate on a novel. You have to have the characters and locations and keep all this in your head. And of course, I have so much stuff I'm doing that I just hadn't had time to do it. But I really always kept wanting to get back into writing fiction. So that's why I realized that this is where the AI can help with. I can use the RAG process, Retrieval Augmented Generation process, to pull up, relevant parts of the characters and locations. And I can then say, hey, we're on chapter 1. I want chapter 1 to be about this thing. Help me write this. And that's why I created the program, so I can get back into fiction writing. And it worked, and I was really surprised. And I have gotten back into fiction writing. So I'm currently writing a book using the software right now, and I hope to be done within a month. Whereas normally, if you're going to write a full, novel, it usually takes years. But using this program, it will generate, 300 words to 500 words at a time. Yes, I have to go in and edit it and, constantly make changes to it.
Yeah.
But the fact that in a single session of maybe, 20 minutes when I have time, I can get 500 words of this is good, edited, usable content. I could not do that without AI. So I just felt that was something that's helpful. So I just released it open source. The source is all there. You can download it, from GitHub and play with it. I also put it into the Windows Store for people who are not programmers but still want to use it. So it's just something I'm very passionate about. And I hope that people will collaborate and, continue to push that little side project forward. But this is kind of what I've been kind of concentrating on, because it does both things. It shows AI as a practical example, and it is something that I'm using on a daily basis. So that's kind of what my current passion.
Cool. So you have to come up with all the characters, the plot, describe every character, and then it'll take that and then you'll say, now I want them to do such and such, and it'll kind of generate the paragraphs of
and
that
stay
happening.
on track. The issue was keeping the AI on track. So this is something else I've been very passionate about, and I've actually done some interviews on this subject, which is the AI is really dumb.
Oh yeah.
Really dumb.
It's like artificial dumbness.
Extremely dumb. It's a useful tool. And remember, I'm very passionate about it. I think we've covered that. I am passionate about this. This is my focus. But please understand it is dumb. It does not think. It does not even understand. What it does do is it applies math. That's what it does. It's nothing but a mathematical calculator. It literally plots the next word based upon the words that came before it. So again, it's very useful and blah, blah, blah. But understanding and working within that context, that again is where, for example, AI story builders, if the program itself, the Blazor program with its database and that sort of thing, if it does not keep track of the characters and organize them in a special way to allow the embeddings, and of course it has to create the embeddings, and to allow the searching to then pull up only the relevant information, to the as part of the prompt, then the content it creates is really nice. But if I did not do this, you're writing a book about a man who's 20 years old now, but he's now having a flashback to when he was 5 years old, and he's talking to his mother. If you don't properly control things, the AI will write something, whereas little Timmy at 5 years old was playing with his toys, and then he got up and he got into his BMW and drove away. It's like, wait a minute, he's 5 years old. But the AI, if you send it information that little Jimmy has a BMW and knows how to drive, he's going to drive, because maybe there's a science fiction book where 5-year-olds can drive. You know what I'm saying? So that's why when I wrote the software, I'm allowing you to have these timelines so that, wait a minute, he can only do this on this timeline, and this paragraph is about that timeline. And then the AI never knows about the BMW and never has the little 5-year-old drive off. So these are the sorts of things that are important if you're, creating applications using AI. And this AI story builders, again, is an example that you can download and play with. And I've also blogged a lot on AIstorybuilders.com about these challenges. So if you look in the blog section, you'll see the blog I just did on Saturday. I totally go through all this is how I avoid all these problems. And, there you go.
Okay. So for AI Story Builder, Microsoft Store, this is not on top of a public model. You have to create the resource in your Azure subscription, right?
Okay, actually on this one, currently right now, it only connects to OpenAI. I'm going to have it so it connects to Azure OpenAI. And the reason why I didn't initially make it to connect to Azure OpenAI is it's still at this point not easy for people to get an Azure OpenAI account. So I knew I was limiting, who could use it. However, the reason why I hopefully in the next 2 weeks I'll allow you to connect it to your Azure OpenAI account is because I'm going to allow people to have their own fine-tuned models. And just briefly delving into fine-tuning, OpenAI has these models. So if you go to ChatGPT, you're using this model. If you want to have the model know about information that it doesn't already know, you always want to use the RAG process, the Retrieval Augmented Generation process that I've just talked about. However, if you want to change the behavior, okay, not just the information, but the behavior of the model, that is when you want to do things like fine-tuning. One example is that with AI story builders, I find that because it was trained on everything ever written, its style of writing is not necessarily my style of writing. Therefore, I would want it to, of course, and what I do is I have to keep, doing some editing and updating. So to avoid that, if I wanted to have my style of writing, then I would want to fine tune the model, train it on my writing, and then I would get better performance in that aspect. So that is something that I plan to introduce to AI story builders, like I said, hopefully in the next 3 weeks. And at that point, I will open it up to allow you to connect to either directly to OpenAI or to Azure OpenAI. So like I said, my software is free. It's open source, all the code's there, whatever. I'm not charging anything for it, even though it's in the Windows Store. It's free, free download. But you are required to put in your key. In this case, you're supposed to put in your OpenAI key. And the cost, because you're paying only API cost, oh man, I mean, I use the program every day, for maybe an hour or so a day. And the bill I get from OpenAI is about $1.50.
Yeah.
I mean, really,
nice.
it's very inexpensive. Azure OpenAI, the cost would be the same. The fine-tuning model may be a little bit more expensive, and I'll find that out, and I'll, of course, blog on it and that sort of thing. But that is something that's actually in progress. I was actually working on it this morning right before this we had this interview.
Okay.
Many thanks to our podcast sponsor, ClearMeasure. ClearMeasure is a software architecture company that empowers clients' development teams to be self-sufficient, moving fast, delivering quality, and running their systems with confidence. Whether starting a new project or developing new technologies or techniques, ClearMeasure sets up your team to deliver world-class results. Learn more at www.clearmeasure.com. ClearMeasure, empowering software delivery. ClearMeasure is also happy to be a sponsor of the video podcast, Programming with Palermo. Watch, learn, and program alongside Chief Architect Jeffrey Palermo. Videos are added weekly and available on syndicated locations supporting video podcast or by visiting palermo.network. Tune in today.
As I understand it, there's a number of named models that you can pick from. How did you make the decision about which one to use? And do you know intimately how they're different?
Oh, I do. For what I'm doing with AI story builders, you're pushing the models to the limit. Okay. So therefore, GPT-4, as of this date right now, when we're recording this, GPT-4 is the model to use.
Okay.
I do allow you to switch to GPT 3.5. It's faster. I mean, when you say I want something, it comes in fast, but the quality, it's totally noticeable.
Okay.
Quick example, if I asked it with the same characters and locations and all that sort of thing, if I said, create a paragraph where, Tom goes to get a hot dog and a robber comes up and mugs him. GPT 3.5 will write something that's very, it kind of makes sense and everyone's, kind of on track, whatever. But then GPT-4 will just have more subtext and the writing will just be more nuanced and the characters will just be, more deeper and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So there are certain tasks that you need that may not need GPT-4. GPT-4, of course, will cost more money. So I just go between GPT 3.5 and GPT-4. The other models they have, the only other model I use is for the embeddings. That uses, I got the name of it, but it's a very extremely inexpensive model. So that when I create embeddings, it's like 0.0001 cent per thousand words that you embed.
Yeah.
It's like, don't even think about it.
Yeah.
So you can embed your entire company database, and it's going to cost you $1. Okay. So yeah, I just use three models primarily.
Is the data in them what's different, or do they actually have a different algorithm also?
It's the math. It's that mathematical algorithm. That's the issue.
Okay.
So it's able to apply this, mathematical. Remember, it's only trying to predict the next word, right? Predicting the next word, the quality it's able to predict is based upon how much it was trained with. I mean, you could think of it. That part I think of it is intuitive. If I gave you one book and I said, okay, all you know is what's in this one book, now predict the next word, you might kind of do okay, especially on topics in that book. But then as soon as I ask you something about, science or, art, and it wasn't in that book, you're like, I'm not so good.
Right.
GPT-4 was trained on, hey, let's throw everything at it. Well, guess what? That makes it really good at predicting the next word on anything you could ask for.
Yeah.
So that's it. You train it on more, it does better. That's it.
But it's also a different algorithm. So it's more data.
Oh yeah. They've obviously optimized so many other things about it. There's this whole, because the neural net and how it, does all this mathematical stuff, and there's papers on it and on all that. So there is other stuff, but it is still, the models behave better when they're trained on more stuff. But that takes a long time. It takes a long time, and it's a very costly process. So there's that. So the big models right now, Google, of course, has their Bard,
Mm-hmm.
and they keep coming out with new versions of that. But that's, again, remember, the L in large language model stands for large. So Bard is a large language model, and it has performance comparable to OpenAI's GPT. And of course, Meta, previously known as Facebook, they have their model, which again is comparable. So it's interesting about Microsoft. While my book is on Azure OpenAI, meaning using Azure to consume OpenAI models, Microsoft has this whole other AI section, which allows you to consume anyone's models. Therefore, if I want to consume the latest model that came out from Meta, Bard, I don't think that one's not available. But the one from Meta, I can consume that through Azure.
Nice.
And because Meta is not charging for their models, you're only paying for compute time in Azure. So that's another thing that I plan to offer in the future with AI story builders when connecting to Azure, is to allow you to, go, let me run it against the Meta model. So that's another thing, that you're not just locked into the OpenAI models.
Yeah, very cool. There seems to be more and more people not only publishing models, but even smaller players creating specialized ones. Like ChatGPT is kind of this generic one, but I stumbled on another site that literally has like probably 4 dozen historical characters, and it's just like, here's Chat Eisenhower, here's Chat Abraham Lincoln. Here, I mean, they just kind of picked all kinds of profiles and they customized it, and I think they did a pretty good job.
That's the kind of thing I hope with the fine tuning, that if, for example, you're saying, I really need this model just to write things for my book, that because that's a nice small focused task, that using a fine-tuned model that's fine-tuned for that task would give you better performance than consuming the general ChatGPT model.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's a process. I'm actually doing experiments now, and I plan to do some experiments this weekend. So that's in process. We can have a follow-up later.
Now, with the models and your writing, have you found a way to take all of your previous books and feed it in so that they know kind of your writing style? I know it's not fiction on that front, but
well, for the I could, though. I'm telling you, what I do want to do is I wanted to do it with my fiction writing, and that is what I hope to do this weekend, which is take all my past fiction writing. Okay. And I have a lot over the years. I mean, I graduated from college 30 years ago.
You look great. You look great.
So I plan to actually go back and take all that and shove it in to see. And I could, obviously, I could do it with my tech stuff. I guess the problem with tech stuff is so much of my tech stuff is so out of date.
Yeah, sure.
I don't want to train it on that.
So I recently did an interview with Kent Beck, who was one of the Agile Manifesto signatories, and he was working on a model he calls Rent-A-Kent. I think Rent-A-Kent.ai, and he did like train it with. He transcribed like recorded conference talks and everything.
Conference,
and his hope is like, can I make it sound like maybe how I would have answered generally? And so,
and that will definitely work. That is, people have done that, and that definitely does work. Yes.
So that, because you mentioned feeding it into during the prompt. Is there a practical limit? Like, how much can you feed it in? I mean, terabytes of data. What's practical?
Well, it's interesting. Before you have this context window. So let's say, for example, previously the context window was about 4,000 tokens. A token is equivalent to about a syllable in a word, and you had tokens coming in and tokens coming out. They both have to add up to, say, 4,000. Then GPT came out with this 16K model. Then the OpenAI came out with the 16K model. Then they came out with the 32K model. Then they came out with the 128K model. I mean, every two months they double it. It's it's like the whole thing with the the computer chips. So I'm gonna start to say that here's the thing, Jeff. If you run out of room,
just wait a little bit.
Just wait. Give it on.
Because I imagine all these businesses that have huge databases, and the obvious question is, you mean I can just turn this thing on my massive database and start asking it questions?
Well, no, remember, you still do the RAG process first. So I have terabytes inside my database. And again, something that I do at my day job is we're using Microsoft Fabric now, which allows you to dump massive amounts of information very cheaply. So I got all this stuff in my Microsoft Fabric database. It's terabytes. I always do the RAG process first. So you come in and you say, I am looking for information. How many customers have we had in the past month who have been very, pleased with the products? And I want to know what these products are, and I want to know what is common about them. What happens is that because everything has embeddings, the first part of the RAG process is to only go in and get those products that, do have a lot of orders and had orders this month. You see what I'm saying? So we do that first. We can then feed this information to the AI with that question. And again, if I've got a 32K prompt, window, I can feed quite a bit of information. And what it comes back with will be nicely, organized and very coherent, and you can say, sorted by such and such. Goes, I got no problem, because you see, so the RAG process doesn't go away. And that's why I feel that the book I wrote is a foundational book, that this foundational thing is part of even all the new stuff that's coming out. Even though the context window gets bigger, you still need to do the RAG process, because
pre-trained.
But I also don't think they're ever going to get to the point where I can send a terabyte to the prompt.
32K. I'm trying to wrap my head into how much that equates to in a SQL Server database. Like, 'cause you pull it out,
you see, it always depends. It depends, because if, for example, it's just a bunch of orders, data, then you can get quite a bit. But for example, if I also included the reviews, so people had reviews, like, I like this product, I like this product. So I have the raw data of, how many sales. I also have like 100 reviews. Okay. I can send all that, and it literally will go, okay, I looked through these reviews for these products, and that's how I determined which products they like. AI and again, a GPT-4 could do a lot better than a GPT-3 at that task, but it's kind of amazing how it's able to go, whoa, it can read a bunch of reviews with a bunch of products and then come up with a list of these are the products that were people like them more, and then compare that to the sales, and then it can give me an executive level report on So it's kind of amazing. But I had to do that RAG first. I have to get the data. So that's always step one. If the data's not there, it ain't gonna, So that's the first step. Always, you must have the data. Number two, though, you must use embeddings so that you can use the RAG process to only pull up the relevant data. And then three, you must send that data with the prompt to the LLM. And then what you get back is magic, usually.
Nice.
It doesn't really understand what it's doing. It's just applying, algorithms and that sort of thing. But it is a very capable tool that there is no comparison. Meaning, what would I do if I did not have LLM?
Yeah, hold on.
There's nothing close.
Analytical data
seriously,
models,
there's nothing
star
close.
schemas.
Hire a bunch of human beings to, crunch these numbers.
Yeah, for sure. Well, before we close out, I want to ask a question that we like to ask every time. This is a new software type. This is a new type of application and a new type of production environment and a new type of what the heck it means to test this type of software. Right? Everything we write with code is software. So, okay, DevOps. Have we, any part of the chain of source control, builds, testing, deploying, monitoring with OpenAI code and the GPT models, have we figured any of those steps out, or is that still in churn? And we're kind of in
this is where
deploy.
Microsoft is a leader. So if someone says, why should I use Microsoft Azure OpenAI, even though the cost is about the same, why should I use that versus going directly to OpenAI or going to Google or something like that? Microsoft is the leader in exactly answering the question you just asked, which is, I need a full DevOps pipeline. We didn't touch on safety. Safety is important. I can't have the AI going off saying things to my customers, or let's say this could be consumed by children or something. You know what I'm saying? Microsoft has put in all these they have tools to address each one of these things, including evaluation. For example, if I do fine tuning, you have to evaluate the model. How do you do that? So that is what their Azure OpenAI product offers. Is it addresses those things. So therefore, if someone is going to, seriously consume, deliver a solution, a business solution that addresses all these very important concerns. I mean, you could find yourself sued, right? That I would strongly recommend that they use the tools by Microsoft, because I don't think anyone else has anything that comes close to the solution that Microsoft provides. And it's a number of things. It's not just one quick thing. It's like, no, you can go there. There's the whole, everything from safety to evaluation to training to deployment to monitoring and all that. So that's what they really spent a lot of time doing. And, you could have a whole nother session just on that.
Yeah. I haven't yet seen, maybe you have, I haven't yet seen a example implementation of an automated DevOps environment targeting Azure OpenAI, from what it looks like in source control all the way through with, different levels of automated tests for it and infrastructure as code to create it on the fly. So
because it's so new, I think that's why you don't have a unified one. You do have parts of it. So every Microsoft conference, about 20% of the sessions will be where someone says, here's this part of how you would go from source control to evaluation to deployment. But then the next person comes up and they go, this is how you go from content management, either from that previous step that the guy just talked about, but, so they have a tool called Prompt Flow. So there, I think, is the keywords that will surface a lot of these examples. But as far as someone putting it end to end, the reason why they haven't done it is, every week a new thing is being released.
Yeah, it's constantly fascinating.
So anything someone showed you, they'll be missing the step because that step didn't exist last week when they created the demo.
Yeah. Yep, makes sense.
But it does exist, and at least the written documentation is available for those who want to explore it.
Nice. Well, Michael, thanks so much for coming back on the Azure DevOps podcast and sharing what you've been up to lately. We'll make sure to include that link in the show notes. Azure OpenAI using C# and AI story builders in the Microsoft Store.
Yes.
So, man, this is fascinating. I love my job, like just learning all these cool things from interviewing you. So thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. And until next time, keep shipping.
You've been listening to the Azure DevOps Podcast, a show for developers and DevOps professionals shipping software using Microsoft technologies. Go to www.AzureDevOps.Show for show notes and other episodes. On behalf of your host, Jeffrey Palermo, and our sponsors, thanks for listening, and may God bless you.